So the agenda for this call is, this power lunch today is going to be running into kind of the story behind why we built these features. I'm going to give a demonstration on how it works in Paperless Parts today. It's going to be a bit of a follow along demonstration as well. I'm going to show you how to turn it on. That's a good place. If you have questions, if you're running into any issues, feel free to raise your hand or submit something in the Q&A. And then at the end of the call, I'm going to run through some frequently asked questions and, of course, open it up, answer any of the questions that you've submitted throughout this power lunch. Or if you have any questions at the end, feel free to chime in. So to get started, I want to provide a little context as to really what we built and why we built it. So as I mentioned, what we're going to be covering is this new feature that we have in the platform on the Build a Quote page, where you're going to be able to get real-time pricing and have visibility into the availability for PEM fasteners. And in addition to that, we are also going to highlight a new feature that we've added to the Build a Quote page, where you can get DFM insertion warnings for those PEM fasteners as well. So we're going to break it up into kind of two separate things, the DFM warnings and the real-time pricing and availability. And to start with the real-time pricing and availability, we built this for a couple of reasons. The first being for estimators, allowing estimators to have the confidence that you're capturing the cost for these PEM fasteners, right? We understand that on some assemblies, it can be a small portion of the cost. They only cost a couple of cents, but when you have, larger quantities, those fasteners can add up, and you don't want to, potentially just not think about that today because it's a part of the process where you have to leave paperless. We want to make sure that it's something you're always taking into account and you're able to do it very easily in the platform. Additionally, with the availability, we want to make sure that you don't run into any issues once you've actually won the job. So sometimes shops just might feel as though they have what they need in inventory, or they might not reach out to a rep that they work with that is distributing PEM fasteners, and all of a sudden they won the work, and now they got to reach out, and all of a sudden they don't have what they need for that particular job, and all of a sudden they have to extend their lead times. And so we don't want you to have to run into any of these issues. We want to make it really easily just on the Build a Quote page to find what you need. And then on the insertion warnings aspect, for owners, this is really helpful because it's just going to allow, across all your different estimators or whoever's working in paperless on the day-to-day to help them mitigate risk, because they're going to have a very consistent and standardized process to call out potential issues before they become a problem for your shop. And then for estimators, it's also going to help you reduce risk because you're not going to be, you're going to be avoiding some costly mistakes. Sometimes your customers can send you over a CAD file, and it just might not be designed properly, and you might not catch it with your own eyes. And so with paperless and us analyzing the geometry of part files, we're going to be able to call out these issues right away for you. And like I said earlier, even though these PEM fasteners may make up a small portion of the BOM, drilling the wrong size hole, inserting the wrong fastener, or having a hole placed too close to an edge, can at best cause a little bit of chaos within the shop, but really at worst, it can cause you to scrap 100% of the parts that you make, right? If all of a sudden you find out that, the fastener isn't going to fit in the holes that you've drilled, then you're going to have to scrap, that entire the job that you've just made. So we want to make sure that you're not running into any of these issues, and we're giving you the foresight while building out your quote. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and demonstrate how you can not only turn this on for your account, but then utilize this in your day-to-day. So the first thing that we're going to want to do is navigate to our settings. So in our settings, we're going to have the ability to turn on this real-time pricing. What we're going to do is we're going to navigate to the quote settings on the left-hand side here. And we can see this real-time pricing for PEM fasteners. Now, when we click this checkbox here, we can go ahead and establish how we want to break up this pricing. So what we've done is we've established two different ways in which you can price your fasteners. Now, the dynamic pricing is looking at a piece price of the fasteners that you're buying for that particular job. So if you're making, 2 assemblies and each assembly is going to have 5 particular PEMs on it, we are going to look as if you're just buying 10 PEM fasteners. Now, the static default quantity is going to be looking at if you're buying by the bag. So a lot of the shops today, right, they have inventory that they track in their ERP system, and they might just refill quantities. And so if you're buying by the bag of, say, 500, 1,000, whatever it might be, we want to make sure that we're, accurately capturing that cost, not as if you're just buying by the job. So in this instance, I'm just going to set this as dynamic. And, in the demonstration, I will show what it looks like when you compare the dynamic versus this static quantity. But once you've set what you want, you can go ahead and save that here. Now, I do want to highlight for the static quantity, you can just type in whatever that number is when it comes to, when you're often buying by the bag. If it's, 500, you can just type that in there and click save. But in this instance, I'm just going to do dynamic. And now what we can do is we can go ahead and navigate to a quote and demonstrate the functionality here. So I'm going to go ahead and drop down to this first line item. It's a standard assembly. And the first thing that we're going to want to do is I always like to view my assemblies with my flat BOM. So I can go ahead here and view all of my purchase components as well as my manufacturing components here. So we can see that a couple of these purchase components are actually PEMs. And the way that we can identify that is by clicking on the 3 dots here on the right-hand side. Can go ahead and convert these to purchase components. And now we're going to link these PEM fasteners either by looking at the OEM part number, or we're actually looking at the CAD model itself, and we can identify an exact geometric match. So I'm going to go ahead here and mark this and link this to a PEM. Go ahead and convert this. One thing I will note is if you've already converted a PEM fastener in the past, we have that smart link. It is going to auto-populate as a purchase component, and it's going to have this PEM logo here to identify that we've established that this is a PEM fastener. So I'm going to do this for the remaining 2. And as I'm converting these to PEMs, since I've turned on that real-time pricing functionality, we can start to see DB Roberts, their logo populating and actually pricing being pulled directly from DB Roberts' site. So what we are doing here is we are actually pinging the API on DB Roberts' website and pulling live pricing right from their site into Paperless. Now, what I want to highlight really quickly is just the difference in price. So today in Paperless, you may have a standard piece price for your different purchase components. Now, when I turn off this real-time pricing, we're going to see that the DB Roberts logo goes away. We're also going to see that the pricing has changed. So even if it is linked to a PEM, you're always going to want to make sure that the real-time pricing is turned on. And the way to visually see that is if we have this distributor logo right here. Additionally, when you hover over the distributor logo, you're going to see when this pricing was last refreshed. One other thing I want to quickly highlight is the ability to see the inventory too. So we can see here next to the price, we have a green little logo right here, just establishing that the stock is available for this particular PEM. Now, what we're actually identifying is that this particular distributor is holding 200% or more than what is required for this particular make quantity. So if I'm installing 4 of these F440-1s, and I'm making 3 assemblies, then I'm going to have 12 of these PEMs for this particular quantity break. And so this is how much it's going to cost for those PEM fasteners for this quantity break. Now, if I scroll up to the top of my quote here and I adjust some quantities, we can start to see the availability change. So now once I've done that, we can see a new availability metric pop up. And that's going to be orange, which is stock is at risk. So what this means is that there's going to be between 100 and 200% in inventory for this distributor for what is required for this particular quantity break. I'll adjust one more quantity and want to highlight the last availability metric. So if we go ahead and put in a large quantity here, we can see the last one, which is red, also has the X in it, which means that the stock is not available for this particular quantity break. So very easy indication visually. Green, you're good to go. Orange, you should be a little weary of potentially not fulfilling what you need once you've won the job. So maybe that's when you reach out to that particular distributor. Maybe you have contact with a rep that you can just send an email over to and assure that they're going to have what you need. And then red is a moment where you're going to have to, find a solution, figure out where else you can potentially source these PEM fasteners from. Now, even one step further, if we go ahead and adjust the real-time pricing settings, we can actually see the different locations and the inventory available in those locations. So this is a good, ability to understand where you're receiving these fasteners from and how much they have in inventory. In addition to that, we are also providing a timestamp of when the pricing was last refreshed. So you're going to be able to see, right, how instant or how recent the price has been refreshed in your platform here. In addition to just looking at the inventory, we can also adjust how we're pricing this particular fastener here. So maybe I want to change that from the dynamic pricing to, this 500 to 999 quantity break. Let's say I buy by the bag of 500. Well, we can see we're going to get a bit of a discounted price here. And so when I go ahead and save that, it is going to change our pricing as well. I will do this for the bottom one here too. We can see it's the same. Go ahead. It's going to adjust that for us here. Now, very quickly, right, you're going to be able to distinguish, the quantity in which you're buying, and you're going to be able to see the availability and the pricing right in here. Before I dive into the functionality with the insertion warnings, I do want to take a second to pause here. Does anybody have any questions on the functionality at all? Does anybody want to chime in and, ask anything in particular here? All right. Well, if not, I'll dive into the DFM warning capabilities.
We do have one question here from Cliff. He raised his hand, so let me just let him talk.
Oh, there we go.
All right, you can go off.
There we go. Thank you. I was just wondering about the changing of the suppliers. So I noticed you picked DB Roberts to start with. Are there options to change suppliers or vendors mid-stride, or is that locked in at the quote settings level?
Yeah, so great question. So today we have a live connection just with DB Roberts. Now, of course, the goal is to incorporate all of the distributors for PEM fasteners in here. And that is something that you would be able to change in the quote settings. If I go ahead and demonstrate this here, we do have this section where you can change what your distributor is. Now, I do want to highlight something that I didn't mention in the beginning of the call that frankly I should have, which is the fact that this is still in a beta. Now, this is an open beta for all of our customers, but this feature is in active development. And so one of the things that we are continuing to add is more distributors in this functionality. In addition to that, we are going to potentially make the workflow a little bit cleaner, maybe change some user interface, the way the user interface is presented to you. So this is an active development, and we are going to continue to improve this. If you have any suggestions on what you'd like to see based on what you're seeing here, by all means, you can either mention that on the call here or reach out to myself or the support team. More than happy to field that feedback. But do want to make that clear. Want to make it clear that we are bringing in more distributors down the line.
Thanks.
Cool. So what I want to highlight next is the second portion, which is the DFM warnings. So on these DFM warnings, it's now going to live on the build a quote page for these PEM fasteners. So today we do have the design for manufacturability warnings that are going to be populated in the viewer there. But for PEM fasteners in particular, we're going to populate these DFM warnings right on the build a quote page. So what I'm going to do first and foremost is I'm going to turn on the real-time pricing. I wanted to highlight that the DB Roberts logo is not there. So we can go ahead and turn that on. Great, instantly update the prices here as we can see. And now we're going to have these warnings populating. So here are some of the examples we might have. You could have a warning that is looking at the size of the hole or how many holes you have on the particular manufactured component itself. So scroll down there. So what we're going to be looking at is the size of the hole, right? If the hole is too small or too large for the specified fastener, we're going to identify it with those particular instances. Additionally, if the hole is positioned too closely to the edge of the part, we're going to call out those DFM warnings. And then also we're going to call out DFM warnings if the material itself is not compatible with that particular fastener, or if the thickness of the sheet is too thin or too thick for you to install that particular fastener. Right, so these are the issues that are going to potentially have you scrap a job or scrap a couple of parts if you don't catch them. And so that's why we're trying to provide this information right on the build a quote page and allow you to see it right away. So we can see this particular fastener has 3 different warnings called out, right? It's recommending that you insert this into a specified material. We're also calling out that the holes themselves are too small for the particular fastener you're inserting. And then also the thickness of the sheet, is too thin in this case to install these particular fasteners. So this is just providing some further foresight, allowing you to not run into these issues once you've actually been awarded the work and you start, manufacturing these assemblies. I'll pause again here for a second. Are there any questions that I can answer on that functionality? All right. Oh, I see something in the Q&A here. You're not going to need anything today to turn that on so that you can see these DFM warnings. Good question, though. So as I said in the beginning of the call, the first thing you're just going to have to do is go to that quote settings and turn on the real-time pricing. But everything else you will be able to see right in your platform once you turn that on. Now, I did want to set aside some time here to go through some questions that we were frequently asked when we were developing this in the beta, and when we've introduced this to some shops, who are helping us, really kind of get to the point where we are today. So the pricing, as I've mentioned, kind of where does this come from? Well, it comes directly from DB Roberts' website and their API. Today, you are not going to get customer specific pricing. You're just going to get the generic pricing from their site. This is only going to, apply to PEM fasteners, right? So PEM components. You're not going to have other purchase components where you're going to get this live pricing. Once again, right, anything that has that PEM logo right next to it when you convert it to a purchase component, and you have the ability to link that to a PEM, either by the name of the part or the geometric match itself. Additionally, I showed you how you can look at when the pricing's last refreshed. You can just see right above the DB logo how long it was. You can always go ahead and adjust that real-time pricing and refresh that pricing here and view when it was last refreshed. Also, when it comes to the availability, you will see, right, one thing I wanted to highlight really quickly is you're going to have the quick color indication as to the availability. But when I adjust my real-time pricing settings and say I buy by, a large bag here, if I update my quantity break, make it a little bit bigger here, what you'll see is that we're actually taking into account the inventory as if you were buying by that bag. So for this, large quantity of 5,000, the stock's not going to be, it's insufficient, because we're looking at this as if we're buying by the bag of 5,000 or whatever you specified in your static default quantity. I'll pause here once again. Are there any other questions that I can answer on the either live pricing and availability functionality or the DFM warnings that are presented? All right. Well, everyone has the ability to turn this on. I hope that you all, get a chance to use this and see the value that, shops are already seeing today. If you have any questions, by all means, feel free to reach out to our support team. Also, on the paperless side of things, I'm Pete Tamasi, and you can reach out to me via email as well. Support, if you want to just reach out to them and get my contact. I'm more than happy to hop on a call with anybody, get you more comfortable using this. If you didn't want to ask any questions here, but you wanted to maybe set up some more time where we can talk through this, more than happy to hop on a call.